My name is Josiah Fisk, 358 Essex Street. I want to comment on a dimension of this project that does relate to zoning. In particular, there are many aspects of this that I won't comment on the other ones right now. But what I am concerned with, I think mainly, is the scale of the proposed building as a commercial and industrial building in this location. So we haven't had a lot of information about this in terms of how the building would look from various angles. We know what the front will look like. So along with some colleagues, I have prepared some illustrations that we believe are accurate. We again, don't have all of the information that would be necessary to do a 100%, we're sure it's right, presentation. But we have measurements that we have used. This is, as you can see, from Google Earth. We have used software that allows us to specify a 35-foot height, which is what we understand to be the height. So that's what we were looking at here. So this is a view, as you can see, from over Bridge Street, looking towards the current Webb building. With the new structure, it would look something like this. Here's another view from a different angle. You can see the McIntyre district in the background, the Webb building obviously in the foreground, a little bit of the park. From this angle, it does have a bit of a large presence in my view. In this view, again, it's really, if you look at the scale of this building compared to everything else in the photograph, it's really large. In particular, compared to the rest of the buildings that you can see from downtown and in the McIntyre. And in this, you can see what is surrounding this building in reality. We have the park across the street. We have the current Webb building to the left, which certainly many of us hope will become residential. It's so close to the train station, it's a natural for that. The economics hopefully will be good for that. We don't know what the plans are, but that would be a possibility, we believe. And obviously in back, all of the, and to the right, it's all residential. So I wanted to take a look at just figuring out how the scale of this building compares to the adjacent residences. And there are several ways to do this. So the first is to do a street front comparison. So if we're looking at the facade, and this is, I apologize that the logo is stretched. This was taken from the illustration that was given to us, and then I tried to straighten it out as an image. That's just what happens. This is one of the bigger houses on Federal Street, and that's, as near as we can tell, a very accurate comparison as far as this, the general height and mass and the style. Here's another way to look at this, the scale of the building with comparing the footprints. So we have shown the map here. There's the footprint of the building. And in this exercise, I took footprints of surrounding buildings and I superimposed them over this to see if we could get in a sort of a rough equivalent of how many of the residential buildings behind the adjacent to this proposed building it would take to equal this building. And the answer is 24. In other words, this is basically 24 times the size of the buildings that are immediately adjacent to it in the back. That amounts to every house along River Street except for the one on the end. The houses that are on Beckford Street and on Federal Street that are abutters, and the abutters to the abutters, and the ones on the other side of Beckford Street there also. All of those houses are encompassed in this equivalence that I did. Another way to look at things here is to try to see what this looks like from Federal Street, because again, this information has not been provided. So we have tried very hard to be accurate in our work on this, and if you can see the red line that is right along there, that is our best guess of where this top of this building would go. And it would start about where that line is on the left and it'd go about to where it is on the right, behind these houses on Federal Street. So this would be, if you look at this, in between here it is as a current view. You can see beyond the trees. That view would now look like this, something like this. I've taken the building texture from the illustration. Again, I've tried very hard to not overdo it with the height, but this is a part of Federal Street where you can look down into the parking lot, so most of the height would be visible. Here's another view from Federal Street between some of the houses. In this case, we would be looking at something like this, directly behind the houses. Here's that same opening viewed from a slightly different angle. You can see that there is a view to the hill across the way there. That view would go away and look like that. And this is also, there is another element to this, we believe, which is that there would be, it's typical in a structure like this, there would be HVAC units on top of the building. I don't know what they'll look like, but they often look something like that. So this would be what you would see, certainly what the abutters would see and what anyone would see visiting the McIntyre and wanting to go down Federal Street by common consent, one of the most beautiful streets in the McIntyre and in the city. So that's at least our good faith effort to portray this. There's one other sort of test that we could do, and that is to position the building, the same building, in a different place. And it turns out this building does have, to my way of seeing it, a rather large footprint. So it turns out, in fact, that if you were to position the same building, which we know no one wants to do, but just as an exercise, if you were to position it so that it was touching the back of the existing building, its facade would, in fact, be on Federal Street. It gives you an indication of the size. As for what that might look like, again, no one is planning on doing this, but that's really basically what you're talking about. It's about the scale. So no one is talking about doing this. I want to emphasize that. But as a matter of scale, this is what is happening right next door to the McIntyre. And I don't think you can blame people in the McIntyre for being a bit concerned. I think, we get called elitists in the McIntyre, and I understand that. But whatever you want to say about the McIntyre, it pays the rent around Salem. It helps pay the rent because it helps when people come to visit here. If Salem looked the way many other New England towns and cities looked, I don't think that people would want to come here for Halloween. It's part of the imagination. And so I think that the McIntyre, preserving the McIntyre and sort of keeping the character of it intact is important. And if the zoning change goes through, then I think that there is, in some sense, some significant sense, an encroachment on the character of the McIntyre. So that's all I have to say on the topic of zoning, and thank you.
I actually have two questions.
Okay. This is normally just public, but we'll go here. We're deviating a little by doing this, so we'll let you go with that as well.
Sir, I just have a question. In your slides, you indicate approximately 24 houses of River Street approximate the square footage of the proposed website.
The footprint, yes. Footprint to footprint comparison, yes.
Did you come up with the number of houses of River Street that would currently constitute the volume of the current FW Webb 5-story building?
I didn't do a volume comparison, no.
Okay. And when you did your comparison, sir, I believe that the former Universal Steel facility site was a 2-story site as well, correct?
I don't know.
I can just tell you that based upon
yes.
I wasn't here in Salem when this
nor was I.
But that was a 2-story building, and that would have blocked some of the people that were living on Federal Street in their view of the park, correct?
Well, this is significantly taller than a two-story building. It's taller than the three-story residential building at the scale of most in the McIntyre. Significantly taller.
And I would just note as well that there are plenty of taxpayers in Ward 4 that also provide a bread and butter.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Stick to things, Dave.
Yeah. I do want to say, since the discussion has been reopened, I do want to say one thing, which is that I am, in addition to being a neighbor, I am a business owner. When I moved to Salem, I brought my business with me. I brought 3 jobs. Now we have 4 jobs. I'm hoping it will be more. But I do have a great deal of respect for the people from Webb. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about the company. I hope that we can find a way to keep them in Salem. I think they have been good citizens. This is not about them as a company at all. I think they're, in my personal experience and in every other way, they're fine people. They are a good business. We are lucky to have them, and we should try to keep them here. But I don't think that this is the right location, and I don't think that this is the right kind of building in that location. I will perhaps say more later, but we want to just do zoning now, so I will hold other remarks for later. Thank you.
All right,